Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Lucha Underground Luchador Spotlight. Today, we are going to be talking about the man who is billed as being from the cosmos, the ultimate rival of the man from El Inframundo, the man that we covered last week, Drago, Aerostar.
Yes, Aerostar. That was his defining rivalry, of season one, his whole program with Drago. I really enjoyed it. I think Aerostar, he's interesting because he's a guy that I think I could see in the main event picture, but it would have to take some convincing on my end. I think he's perfect where he is in that mid-card level, having matches with the likes of Drago. I think he's an excellent talent in that regard.
I think that, to me, the best role for Aerostar is sort of that gatekeeper role where he's not really ever going to be in the main event scene or maybe even not even like somebody that you can really take seriously as a challenger for the gift of the gods. But if you beat him, it kind of means that we have to take you seriously.
Exactly.
Kind of like what Tyler Breeze has been for the last year or so in NXT.
Yeah, that's a perfect articulation of it. And you know what? The more I think about it, the more I think Aerostar really does fit that mold, so I can totally see where you're coming from.
Yeah, because, I mean, let's be honest, even though Drago ended up getting banned from the temple, he immediately got inserted into the main event scene after he beat Aerostar in that best of five series. And he really did kind of stay in the main event scene at that point too, because the first match that he had after that was for the world title, and his first match back from being banned was a number one contendership match. So then, sure, he got sidetracked by Hernandez, but I think Drago is still in that world title contention, while Aerostar, I feel like, has been kind of relegated, not even to an upper mid card status, but just straight up mid card.
Yeah, I can definitely see what you're saying. So after, Drago got past Aerostar, he saw an elevation, whereas
Right.
Aerostar's kind of stayed put, thus, kind of fulfilling that gatekeeper role.
Right.
So yeah, I could agree. I don't really know if I see him ascending, oddly enough, given that he is from the Cosmos much this season, but let's hash it out and find out.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, his season one was relatively simple. His first match was that Fatal Four Way in episode 10 that involved Argenis, Angelico, and Brian Cage, or just Cage. This is Lucha Underground after all. And of course, he obviously we know Cage won that match pretty definitively. Um, so Aerostar didn't necessarily win that match, and then he just kind of got thrown into a bunch of random matches until the feud with Drago Star. Oh my God, that's actually an amazing name for a tag team. But Drago, until the feud with Drago got started, is what I was trying to say. And I think that lasted like 10 episodes because they didn't have a match on every episode. I think it was an every other episode thing. So that was like an 8 to 10 episode kind of program. And by the time that was done and over with, you saw Drago kind of going towards the Hernandez feud, and Aerostar really didn't have any kind of singles feuds at that point. He was just kind of in that role where he would put on good matches with pretty much everyone. I think he had a match. Yeah, he was Johnny Rudo's first match. So yeah, he just kind of acted as that establisher where he just kind of made other people look legit. And of course, he did win. I believe he did win an Aztec medallion to be in the Gift of the Gods match. Is that right?
Didn't Jack Evans beat him for one? I didn't think Aerostar qualified. Or did he get a medallion another way?
I
Because
think he was in the match, wasn't he?
I didn't think he was, because I thought Jack
Yeah,
Evans
because
beat him
didn't
for his
he?
last
He
chance to
flew off
qualify.
the rafters.
Did he? I'm trying to,
He
because
was the
I
one that
don't.
jumped off like the third story area.
Oh, you know what? I think you're right. Yeah, because I really just didn't remember him in Gift of the Gods. But yeah, I guess you're right.
That was like the big moment for him. He jumped off of like a super high area near the commentator's desk and landed on three people. And I, of course, was the first person to point out while we were watching it that two of those three people were baby faces. Like it was,
Right,
I think it was Drago, Bengala, and maybe King Cuerno or Jack Evans or Big Rick or someone like that. But yeah, like
right.
he went up top there and he jumped off and he landed on three people and a majority of them were the good guys and he's a good
Right.
guy, so it didn't make sense. But yeah, he was in the Gift of the Gods match. I think the fact that you didn't even remember him being in that, well, neither one of us did. Let's be honest. The only reason I remembered is because I remembered that spot. But that fact, I think, really does tell us that he's a little bit in over his head in that scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Like he's not a guy that I think is going to really make a big imprint in any main event style program, but being, as I've used the term for other people, that reliable hand, that guy that can have solid matches, especially with guys that you are going to legitimize in the future. To your point, Ashton, I think that's the perfect role for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say, do we want to already talk about his season 2 and what we would want to see him do there?
Yeah, and I think for starters, because that when we did our Angelico spotlight, that I had certain ambitions for him. And I think I would start by, I would have Aerostar have a few matches with Angelico. So that's how I think I would begin his
So
season.
you would just kind of toss them out there as like a face versus face, we're just being friendly kind of thing.
Yeah, just like who.
Cueto wouldn't have that though. Cueto would be like, no, 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 no. There's going to be something important on the line in these matches.
Well, yeah, I guess. I guess you're right. So that would make things a bit more complicated. But who's a good Rudo for Aerostar to start out with that's low on the card? Maybe Jack Evans, I guess. Maybe start with Jack Evans. They have a little program. You know,
What about man, you make a good point. I feel like there aren't enough actual luchadors. I feel like all the Rudos are unmasked.
right.
The only Rudo luchador that I can think of is Cuerno. Maybe no, Killshot I guess is kind of in that category. I don't want to talk about Killshot and King Cuerno like they're the only heels on the roster though.
Right. I'm trying to think who would be a good fit for that. I mean, I really struggle. So I would say maybe Jack Evans Eurostar would start out with, and then maybe just kind of work his way, in that tier. But then we get to his Ultima Lucha, really, which is the big thing, Ultima Lucha 2. I have no idea what I would want Aerostar to do there. I
What
almost
about
kind of want to make this.
Superfly?
Superfly could be an interesting one.
He's definitely a Rudo at the end of the last season.
Yeah, certainly. And maybe, I don't know, maybe he would develop some kind of vendetta against Aerostar. Maybe we could manufacture one throughout the season. So yeah,
The
Superfly and
two
Aerostar.
the two guys who actually have like really hardcore like we actually fly gimmicks.
Right.
The guy with
Yeah.
the freaking jetpack in his suit and the guy whose name is literally Superfly.
Right.
That
Yeah,
would
that's
I thought yeah, I
crazy.
like that feud though. I think that that's something that would really work out well.
Do you,
I would also toss out there that if we get any kind of uh, Rudo turn from any of the kind of core technico luchadors. I mean, you look at guys like Bengala, Prince Puma, Drago, Phoenix. If any of those guys turn, I think that Aerostar is the perfect first opponent for them, fresh off a turn.
Oh yeah, I completely agree. That's why I feel like Aerostar was such a great opponent when Mundo had his turn. That first week, I feel like he was the perfect opponent to kind of reestablish Johnny, reorient him in that kind of role. Yeah, I completely agree. If we have any big Rudo turns, Aerostar is the go-to guy. But what to do with him at the show
Davari.
of shows? Oh, you think Davari?
I think
Interesting.
Davari would be a good, an interesting opponent for him, just because they're a similar size, but they have such opposite skill sets and opposite styles.
Right, it would definitely be that contrast. But like, what are
And
your ultimate?
it would be very different because Davari in the first season was always going after big fish and paying other people to fight his battles for him. Well, maybe now he decides to fight his own battles.
Right, because he sees the inefficiency of just throwing money at the problem, and he's like, "Well,
Yeah.
I got to get my hands dirty now."
You know what I kind of want to see, assuming she comes back as a Rudo?
What's that?
Eurostar versus Evilise.
Ooh, that would be interesting. I mean, again, they've already made a point that, women fight women and women fight men and everybody fights everybody. So, I don't know, you give them a basic motivation. Maybe there'll be, like, I don't know, a weird way to determine a number one contender for the Lucha Underground Championship, and maybe that's how those two cross paths or
I
something
think
like that.
that's a match that I would want to see at least 3 times in this season. Like and that's my thing too. Is that I think when we do get to Evilise, which is going to be in about a week, I think,
Right.
maybe a little more than that. I really, honestly, I think that she is going to be one of our most interesting commentaries because I have so many things that I want to see her do. So many guys and girls that I want to see her fight just because she missed out on most of season 1.
Yeah, I'm excited for that one for you because you've always been genuinely invested and interested in her, and I know how distraught we both were when she did come down with her injury and she couldn't really finish out the season. Well, I mean, she finished it out strong, but not as strong as we knew she was capable of doing.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that'll be a fun one. But But to really round out Aerostar, I like all the ideas that we put out. I guess for Ultima Lucha, as I know it's going to continue, I guess that running joke, I guess throw them in Gift of the Gods. I don't know. It just
No,
like,
see, I wouldn't. I think that Gift of the Gods, with the breaking up of Team Havoc, I think that the Gift of the Gods picture is going to be too crowded for him to find a spot in that.
right.
I don't even know if I would put him on Ultima Lucha. I might even just throw him in that Dark Battle Royal like what they had in season one.
Right. Yeah, I don't even know if he would make the cut. I have to agree with you because the only other way then would be, as I've talked about, maybe him and Drago go find a third guy, and maybe they would make a bid for the
Right?
trios championships.
Maybe, yeah, like them two in Bengala would be interesting as a trio.
Yeah, Bengala's the one name that consistently comes up. So yeah, you've got Aerostar, Drago, and Bengala against the Disciples of Death. But that's the only other way I could really see him
Yeah.
legitimately on a car without him feeling displaced.
And I think that the thing with that is the Disciples of Death, like, it's going to take something special to beat those guys. I don't think that just a random assortment of good guy luchadors is going to do it.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there as well. I mean, the Disciples of Death. I just feel like this whole stable of Death, is going to be so dominant in the second season that all the champions, Mil Muertes and the Disciples, are just going to be so strong that just a ragtag collection of Technico misfits isn't going to do it. So I have to agree. I mean, maybe just keep Aerostar in the Battle Royal and he doesn't even make the main card.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you can't get everybody on it when it's a 3-hour show and you've got over 30 people on your roster. So
Exactly, yeah, just too many spots to fill, and I just don't think Aerostar really has that presence of that kind of effect where, it's any big loss if he's not on the card. So unfortunately, yeah, I'd say Battle Royal.
one thing I will say though is I'm looking forward to see what kind of spots he pulls out of his bag of tricks during Aztec Warfare.
Oh yeah, well that's always a fun thing to behold with a guy like Aerostar because he is great with all that athleticism. Yeah, like what are they gonna pull out of the hat to survive to get their chance to win? So that should be interesting.
Absolutely. All right, guys. I think that we've kind of hit a wall here. I think it's about that time to wrap things up. Aerostar is a very entertaining in-ring performer, and I think that if anyone can make us believe that he is a main event-worthy guy, it is the Lucha Underground writers. But as of right now, after season one, he's just kind of stuck in that mid-card to lower mid-card kind of area. Not that that's a bad thing. He's still talented. He still entertains us. At the end of the day, there's just a ton of talent on this roster, and it's just you can't fit everyone on the big show, right, John?
Exactly. You got to make cuts. You got to make it the best show possible. And Aerostar, just right now, isn't quite at that level. But like you said, Ashton, with the Lucha Underground writers, we could buy him in that world title picture by the end of next season. So we'll
Absolutely.
see.
That being said, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think anybody actually guessed this, but we're going to throw it out there. Our next episode, our next spotlight, obviously it's going to be on Tuesday. We are going to be covering
Who we
Jack
doing?
Evans.
Ah, yes. Clever with how you establish their relationship. I think most people overlook that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, that's my whole thing too. When you get about halfway through the roster, it's really hard to continue making these connections between people.
right.
And I'm not even I think that I managed to make sure that everyone has some kind of a connection, whether it's an actual connection where they had like a rivalry in season one, or like some kind of an off-screen connection, or a connection in another company, or some kind of a like they're best friends in real life or something, just something, some kind of connection to make sure that this is all comprehensive. But yeah, next week or next Tuesday we're going to be covering El Mejor Luchador, Jack Evans, probably my favorite Rudo in the company right now.
He is so good, dude. So
Although I
talented.
mean Johnny Mundo, I don't know, it's close.
I know and I don't even blame you for saying it's close. Like Jack Evans to me, what a fun prospect he is. I loved him from the moment he debuted. I can't wait to talk about him and his potential season two.
Yeah, and I mean if you know we're talking about Jack Evans next, you'll probably be able to guess who we're going to be talking about after him. But I'm not going to give it away. I want you guys to try and guess who's coming after Jack Evans, and if you feel confident enough, I know a few weeks ago, I think it was when we did Kill Shot, somebody guessed that we were going to do King Cuerno and then Drago after him. So they had the balls and they went two out and they got them both right. So let's see if anybody can get anywhere close for Jack Evans. I know the next one after him might be pretty easy, but it's going to be a little bit more difficult to guess the guy after him. So that being said, let's close this out, ladies and gentlemen. If you enjoyed this, stay tuned because you're going to get to hear our Survivor Series preview and predictions on this channel later tonight, and that is going to be a let's just say an explosive video. How does that sound?
Sounds perfect to me, brother.